Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, Dr. Gnar. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is another installment in the Keep the Muscles Moving series hosted by Chatham University's MFA program. My name is Sheila Squilanti. I'm the director of the program, and it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome back one of our beloved alums, Cedric Rudolph, who is giving a craft talk today about persona. Before I introduce Cedric, just a couple of things to let you know. You are all automatically muted, and we may allow you to unmute at the end for questions, but for the duration of the presentation, we'd like to remain that way, just to, background noise and all of that. You are welcome to keep your cameras on or turn them off, whatever your comfort is. And let's see, we are recording this session, and it will be available on our Chatham University YouTube channel after this. We have a new YouTube channel, kind of fun. Okay, you can use, one more thing, the chat is open. You can use the chat to contact me or Joe Bisciotti, who is also here behind the curtains managing things. If you have any questions about technology, or if you would like to just respond to Cedric's talk, or you have questions, feel free to use the chat function for that. Okay, let me pull up Cedric's bio. All right, let's see. Cedric Rudolph first moved to Pittsburgh in 2016 to pursue teaching incarcerated populations under a Words Without Walls fellowship from Chatham University. For 2 years, he taught at Allegheny County Jail and the now-defunct SCI Pittsburgh. In 2018, he graduated from Chatham with an MFA in poetry and in pedagogy. He is currently in his 3rd year of teaching fiction and poetry to middle and high school writers in the Pittsburgh Creative and Performing Arts School, CAPA. In addition, he is one of the founding editors for Beautiful Cadaver, which publishes social justice-themed anthologies and stages theatrical performances. Beautiful Cadaver will be able to expand its local efforts thanks to a grant from the Three Rivers Community Foundation. In fulfillment of the grant, Cedric will be teaching writing to youth in 2020 and 2021. His poems are published in Christianity and Literature in Christianity and Literature Journal, the Laurel Review, and the Santa Fe Literary Review. He has publications forthcoming in the Coal Hill Review and the Pittsburgh Neighborhood Guidebook. In addition, I'm delighted to say that Cedric will be joining us as a faculty member at Chatham as part of our new Emerging Black Writers in Residence program during the spring 21 into fall 21. He and another one of our alums, who I will actually talk about at the end of the program, will be joining us. We're very excited. Okay, Cedric, I'm going to turn it over to you and mute my microphone.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. I'm gonna put myself on a timer so I don't go over. We'll see how far I go over. It's so good to see everybody tonight. Thank you for coming here onto this meeting on a Friday night. You could be watching Netflix, or you could be masked up out in the temperate night air, but you are here, so thank you. And I am just excited to see people. So excited to see other people, because quarantine has been a bit of a mother. So I am happy to see all your faces and your icons. I wanted to start this talk off with a video of Patricia Smith performing, and then I'm going to talk for a while, and then I'd like to pass it over to you and engage you with an exercise and hear some of you read and see what you come up with. So I am going to share my screen. And I have prepared a PowerPoint, and I'm going to start with this video.
From Chicago, Illinois, Patricia Smith. They call me skinhead, and I got my own beauty. It is knife scrawled across my back in sore, jagged letters. It is in the way my eyes snap away from the obvious. I sit in my dim matchbox on the edge of a bed, tousled with my ragged smell, slide razors across my hair, count how many ways I can bring blood closer to the surface of my skin. These are the duties of the righteous, the ways of the anointed. The face that moves in my mirror is huge and pockmarked, apple-cheeked, scraped pink and brilliant. I am filled with my own spit. 2 years ago, a machine that slices leather sucked in my hand and held it, whacking off 3 fingers at the root. I didn't feel nothing until I looked down and saw them on the floor next to my boot heel, and I ain't worked since then. I sit here and watch niggers take over my TV set, walking like kings up and down the sidewalks in my head. My shoulders tell me that ain't right, so I move out into the sun, where my beauty makes them lower their heads. I was born to make things right. It's easy now to bend my big body into shadows, to move from a place where there was nothing into the stark circle of a streetlight, the pipe raised up high over my head. It's a kick to watch their eyes get big, round and gleaming like cartoon jungle boys, just in that second before they know the pipe's gonna come down. And I got this thing I like to say, hey, listen to this. I like to say, hey, nigga! Abe Lincoln's been dead a long time. I get hard just listening to their skin burst. I was born to make things right. Then this reporter comes around. Seems I was a little sloppy kicking some fag's ass, and he opens up and screams about it. So this reporter finds me at home in bed. The TV flashes, licking my face clean. Same old shit. I ain't got no job. The colors and sticks got them. Why ain't I working? Look at my hand, asshole. No, I'm not part of no organized group. I'm just a white boy who loves his race, fighting for a pure country. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes 3, sometimes 30. AIDS will take care of the faggots. Then it's gonna be white on black in the streets. Then there'll be 3 million. I tell him that. So he writes it up, and I come off looking like I'm some kind of goddamn freak, like I'm Hitler himself. I ain't that lucky, but I got my own beauty. It's in my steel-toed boots, in the hard corners of my shaved head. I look in the mirror and I hold up my mangled hand. Only the baby finger left. I know it's the wrong finger, but fuck you all anyway. I am riding the top rung of the perfect race, my face scraped pink and brilliant. I'm your baby, America, your boy. Drunk on my own spit, I am goddamn fucking beautiful. And I was born and raised right here. Love you.
So this is a visual of the poem Skinhead that Patricia Smith read, just so you can see what it looks like on a page and see how the lines are broken and the shape of the poem. So it was important to show the actual video of that poem being performed, because it's important to hear the words and the persona and to see the person behind the persona. And those two images grifting against each other is a vital representation and performance and presentation of that poem. The performance of the poem Skinhead by a Black woman and the hate and vitriol and the way that she's able to subvert this image of a baby being born, of America giving birth to, America is supposed to give birth to ideals, and this person is what America is giving birth to. And the fact that this needs to be said and it needs to be called attention to, the fact that he is America's baby. And I also think that it's important to shed light. That poem sheds light on a person who uses the shadows to hide themselves. And this is a way for Patricia Smith to push this person out into the open. This person who's been performing their violence in the dark. So I want to move beyond this idea of persona, which means mask in Latin, past this idea of just a mask and a mask that you're wearing. You're not always hiding when you're in persona. And it's not always, as we saw, it's not always sexy, it's not always clever, or meant to be funny. Sometimes persona work can be very serious, necessary but serious. The way I'm defining persona, and I'll be talking a lot about persona poetry, but I also am gonna bring in prose into this towards the end as well. But persona poetry being a speaker who is not the poet, a speaker who is talking, is describing, is seeing the world, but it's not the poet. It is another character that's either invented or is historical or actually lived or is living now. So a poem written there is honking outside. A poem written, okay, got it. A poem written in the form of a speech or an individual character who talks to an audience in a single scene, is a dramatic monologue. And that's another major tenet of persona poetry. That's what we just saw with the poem performed by Patricia Smith. And there was an implied audience. Obviously, Patricia Smith had an actual audience, but there's an implied audience in persona poems where the speaker is communicating with someone or telling their story or witnessing, giving a testimony even. I believe that persona can be service. I believe that it can be more than just something fun that we do. It can be used to give voice to the powerless or the silenced. It can be used to recall forgotten history, to exercise collective demons, which is another function of that poem Skinhead by Patricia Smith. And it can be used to contextualize or re-examine narrative. So this is a picture of Claudette Coleman, and Claudette Coleman was a young teenager, around 15 years old. During the 50s, she refused to give up her seat on a bus. And there were several instances like this of young women who refused to give up their seat. And collectively, at least in general American history, we always go to Rosa Parks, but there are lots of women who the NAACP considered, that civil rights leaders considered to be the center of their boycott efforts or their protest efforts. And Claudette Colvin was considered, but ultimately she was young. A lot of people thought that she might be too flighty as a teenager. Then she got pregnant, so that was another downside for using her as the beacon for the movement. And so, lest she be forgotten, Rita Dove writes a poem about her called Claudette Colvin Goes to Work, and I love this poem, and so I'm going to read that now. And she starts the poem off with a epigraph, and interestingly enough, this clipping from a boycott flyer, they've misspelled her name, which is very interesting thinking about voices who have gotten lost in history, that her name itself is not even spelled correctly. So Claudette Colvin Goes to Work. Another Negro woman has been arrested and thrown into jail because she refused to get up out of her seat on the bus and give it to a white person. This is the second time since the Claudette Coleman case. This must be stopped. Menial twilight sweeps the storefronts along Lexington as the shadows arrive to take their places among the scourge of the earth. Here and there, a fickle brilliance, light bulbs coming on in each narrow residence, the gold wattage of bleak interiors announcing, anyone home? Or I'm beat, bring me a beer. Mostly I say to myself, still here. Lay my keys on the table, pack the perishables away before flipping the switch. I like the sugary look of things in bad light. One drop of sweat is all it would take to dissolve an armchair pillow into brocade residue. Sometimes I wait until it's dark enough for my body to disappear. Then I know it's time to start out for work. Along the avenue, the cabs start up, heading toward Midtown. Neon stutters into ecstasy as the male integers light up their smokes and let loose a stream of brave talk. Hey, mama, souring quickly to your mama when there's no answer, as if the most injury they can do is insult the reason you're here at all. Walking in your whites down to the stop so you can make a living. So ugly, so fat, so dumb, so greasy. What do we have to do to make God love us? Mama was a maid, my daddy mowed lawns like a boy, and I'm the crazy girl off the bus, the one who wrote in class she was going to be president. I take the number 6 bus to the Lex Ave train, and then I'm there all night, adjusting the sheets, emptying the pans, and I don't curse or spit or kick and scratch like the way they say I did then. I help those who can't help themselves. I do what needs to be done, and I sleep whenever sleep comes down on me. So that's another thing to mention. Claudette Colvin was a nurse. The thing that really grabs me about this poem is that line where the speaker is describing her surroundings, and she says that she likes the sugary look of things in bad light. And Dove accesses a deep truth here, gets deep into the mind of Claudette Coleman. This is something in her mind that's almost secret knowledge that is something that she probably wouldn't share with anyone. And for a writer to get that deep into the psychology of a character, I think is such an interesting nugget to take from a poem. And so I really learned from this poem a lot about letting your character speak and letting your character view the world through your eyes. So just to complicate this idea of dramatic monologues, so this is the persona poem we're most familiar with. If you start with Robert Browning and his poem "My Last Duchess," and that poem is in heroic couplets and tells this whole crazy mystery story through poetry. This kind of dramatic monologue is widely written, but there are ways that writers have complicated the persona poem. I want to talk about Natasha Truthaway, her book Below Ophelia. This is the person, untitled photo, the woman who was a prostitute in late 1800s, early 1900s New Orleans. And E.J. Below was a Southern photographer. By day, he took pictures of boats and very PC items around town. And then at night, he took pictures of prostitutes. And this prostitute was actually a Black woman whose skin was so light that she presented herself as white, and she really tried to pass and use that as currency so that she would be more desirable. And as a multiracial woman, Natasha Truthaway found an end to this character, and she wanted to give her a name. And so her name was Ophelia. And this is a poem called Photography. Photography, October 1911. The look talks to me about light, shows me how to use shadow, how to fill the frame with objects, their intricate positions. I thrill to the magic of it, silver crystals like constellations of stars arranging on film. In the negative, the whole world reverses. My black dress turned white, my skin blackened to pitch. Inside out, I said, thinking of what I've tried to hide. I follow him now, watching him take pictures. I look at what he can see through his lens and what he cannot. Silverfish behind the walls, the yellow tint of a faded bruise, other things here, what the camera misses. So thinking of this idea of a dramatic monologue, this poem is part of a series, and it's 10 poems that are a diary of Ophelia's. And obviously a diary doesn't have an audience. And so if this were the real diaries of this woman from the 19th century New Orleans, she may have never wanted this to be found. So this is an interesting idea that we're seeing into the thoughts that are tucked away, the thoughts of Ophelia, which may have not come to light anyway, but by magic. So this poem is also a sonnet, an American sonnet. And so there's the form, very tight form. And Natasha Truthaway has said that she wanted these diaries to all be sonnets because she wanted the identity of Ophelia to be very consistent throughout her diaries, as opposed to the rest of the book, which is written in letters, where Ophelia writes to her family members. She writes to people that she knows about how she's surviving the gritty New Orleans life. And so in these other poems, she is presenting a face, and she's presenting an outward affectation to the people she's writing to. But in her diary, she is consistent and can tell a different narrative. And so we have these two very different presentations of Ophelia in the book. So that is one complicated persona. So Dr. Seuss, as time goes on, we found out some interesting things in the biography of Dr. Seuss. For one, he wrote a minstrel show and performed in the minstrel show. And there are some of his images and some of his stories which now we perceive, and maybe even then, we perceive as racist. And Terrence Hayes wrote a really interesting poem called The Blue Seuss, which does not have an I, but it is very much the voice of a Seuss or a version of Seuss. Blacks in one box, blacks in two box, blacks on. Blacks stacked in boxes, stacked on boxes, blacks in boxes stacked on shores, blacks in boxes stacked on boats in darkness, blacks in boxes do not float. Blacks in boxes count their losses, blacks on boat docks, blacks on auction, blacks on wagons, blacks with masters in their houses, blacks with bosses in the fields, blacks in helmets toting rifles, blacks in Harlem toting banjos, boots, and quilts, blacks on foot, blacks on buses, Blacks on backwood hardwood stages singing blues, blacks on Broadway singing too. Blacks can Charleston, blacks can foxtrot, blacks can bebop, blacks can moonwalk, blacks can beatbox, blacks can run fast too. Blacks on, blacks in, blacks on knees and blacks on couches, blacks on good times, blacks on roots, blacks on Cosby, blacks in voting booths are blacks in boxes, blacks beside blacks in rows of houses are blacks in boxes too. So there's a lot here to unpack, but if we go with this idea of that Dr. Seuss's biography is more complicated than we originally knew, then it's very interesting that if this is really the voice of Dr. Seuss, that he's talking about Black people. And you really have to think about this poem. Is he, on one hand, simplifying the Black experience and Black people? And then in what ways is Terrence Hayes also complicating the idea of Black people and kind of winking in this poem about the language? He's playing with language itself, and that things are slippery and not as easy as a rhyming book for kids. Not a mask, a veil. I want to talk to you about persona that you can create that is not necessarily a character who's from history or a TV persona or a character from literature, but a character that you feel is a version of you, a thinly veiled version of you. I think in every poem, even when there's an I, it's slightly off. Nothing is, you can't totally get your whole self into a poem. I have this example, Stephen Dunn. I know Dr. Bernard loves this poem, or has shared this poem before, so I found this poem thanks to her. But this is Don't Do That by Stephen Dunn. It was bring your own if you wanted anything hard, so I brought Johnny Walker Red along with some resentment I'd held in for a few weeks, which was not helped by the sight of little nameless things pierced with toothpicks on the tables, or by talk that promised to be nothing if not small. But I'd consented to come, and I knew what part of the house their animals would be sequestered, whose company I loved. What else can I say, except that old retainer of slights and wrongs, that bad boy I hadn't quite outgrown, I brought him along too. I was out to cultivate a mood. My guests greeted me, but I did not ask about my soul, which was when I was invited by Johnny Walker Red to find the right kind of glass and pour. I toasted the air. I said hello to the wall, then walked past a group of women dressed to be seen, undressing them one by one, and went up the stairs to where the Rottweilers were, Rosie and Tom, and got down with them on all fours. They licked the face I offered them, and I proceeded to slick back my hair with their saliva. And before long, I felt like a wild thing, ready to mess up the party, scarf the hors d'oeuvres, but the dog said, no, don't do that. Calm down. After a while, they open the door and let you out. They pet your head, and everything you might have held against them is gone, and you're good friends again. Stay, they said. So there are some fantastic things that happen in the poem. There's even a mention by the poet that he's there to cultivate a mood. This is obviously a version of Stephen Dunn. And if you read this book, Here and Now, that the poem is from, there are many versions of Stephen Dunn in that book. And so I think this was a good example of an I that's not quite the poet, but is approximation. It's close enough. And I'm not going to read my poem, but I have a poem called Arrogance Cologne, and it's very much about, just this very arrogant speaker. and it's a version of me. Like, this version only comes out on the weekends or on Friday night, and he doesn't come out every day because that would be tiring. But I wanted to include this because I know myself, and I know that this is a persona. So it was important for me to include that as well. So just getting down to the nitty gritty of accessing another voice, I think part of it is acting. I think part of it is thinking about the tools of what actors use. If you really have a character that you need to spend time with, especially if you want to write more than one poem or more than one prose piece about a character, this goes with fiction as well. Wearing the kind of clothes that they would wear, going to the thrift store, buying something that they would buy, reading a book that they would read, trying on, if your character is an introvert, trying to entertain yourself for an afternoon. If your character is an extrovert and you're normally introverted, trying to talk to someone, which is complicated now because of Corona, but trying to talk to someone out, that you don't know, a stranger. Think about how your life intersects with the life of the character. Consider how you might get an into that person's mind and life. Thinking about I've written a poem about Prince, and Prince was a straight man by all accounts, but very queer, and so I felt that was definitely a person who I related to, and I've written a couple of things in the voice of Prince, just because that's a performer who was into genre bending and gender bending. And then find the language. So what words would your character use that you wouldn't use? That's not to say a caveat. Dialect is not something I personally like, in terms of, I think that you can go overboard with trying to sound like a character. I think that there are words you can use to signal. You can mess with syntax, mess with word order, mess with diction. Just thinking about prose, I was considering Jamaica Kincaid and the stories that come from an I and her strong first person narrators. So I included an excerpt from her story Girl. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the responsibility of the poet. I don't want to, in this talk, give everyone license to just grab any persona. I think that you should ask yourself questions. I think there's definitely lines you can cross, and you should ask yourself, am I a part or directly connected to this tradition, culture, race? Is my knowledge authentic? Or is it the knowledge of cliche and stereotype? Is this story better told by someone from that culture or experience? And how much research have I done regarding this culture and person? This have I even done the work? So I for instance love Native American culture, but I would never write from the point of view of a Native American person because I'm not part of that culture, and they need to tell their own stories. And so I do not pick that up. I don't pick that persona up because it's not my story to tell. And so you really have to think about and have responsibility with the personas that you take on as well in your writing. Okay, and just for further reading, I put a few books here, and some of them are the works that I excerpted. There are things more beautiful than Beyonce by Morgan Parker. I wish I could have included some work by her. I love her. I think that that book is so interesting. Kevin Young is another great persona writer. Louise Gluck's Wild Iris. I haven't gotten into personification. So Sheila and Joe, I'd like to open it up now to questions that people have, and then after questions, we can move on to an exercise and let people write.
Cedric, do you want to keep the screen share, or do you want to take it back to the gallery view?
You know what? I'll stop sharing and then I'll put it back up when I give the exercise.
Okay. I think maybe because there are so few of us, it would be okay to just unmute yourself to ask a question, just being mindful that we might have a little bit of crosstalk. Is that okay?
Can I just had a quick question, Cedric, before we get into the deeper stuff. Just when you said an American sonnet, I thought it was still 14 lines, but what's the difference between an American sonnet and the ones that we know from the other side of the pond?
Well, it really depends on the writer. So it's once you know the standard, which is iambic pentameter, 14 lines, there's a volta, so that there's a quick change toward the end of the poem. In a Spencerian sonnet, it's kind of a question and then the response, and there's the rhyme. So all of those elements are kind of the standard. So American sonnet is kind of, in American, we're like, we can do it our way. We don't have to follow all the rules. So there's a kind of a spectrum of how far you move away from that standard. And with Natasha Truthaway, for instance, she will use a standard syllable count for 14 lines, and that's to approximate the meter. And so she still uses rhyme. I don't think in that one that I showed, but she still uses rhyme. She still uses syllable count. She still includes a volta. So there are all those elements that she keeps in there, but she may stray from the form. And a lot of times the rhyme scheme will change. Writers will change the rhyme scheme, like Marilyn Hacker has done that before. So it really depends on the American poet that you're talking about and how they want to mix up the form. Terrence Hayes has a new collection, A Past and Future Assassin, which is all American sonnets, and they all have the same title. That's a good example. Any other questions? Matt, thanks for dancing with me. I appreciate it. Okay, so for the exercise, I think I can do this part without sharing the screen. I would like for you all to do some brainstorming. So I'd like for you to take some time to consider personas that you're drawn to. This could be a celebrity, be a pop icon, a TV personality, a reality TV star, someone whose bio you're familiar with, someone you would not have to heavily research, and they can be living or dead. And if you're really pressed, if you're really like having a hard time, you could give life to an invented character, like Tony the Tiger, or a campaign slogan, the general from the insurance ad. But I think that pop icons are a good place to start because their lives are we know so much about them that we shouldn't know, and especially reality TV stars as well, and they're in the public sphere. So you want to come up with those, and if you don't mind sharing, you can post them in the chat. That might give someone another idea for possibilities. And then I want you to take the next 10 minutes to write down everything you know about that person. Think about the assumptions from the media about that person, the assumptions from your friends about that person, publicity stunts, public gaffes and goofs, and petty drama, of course. Let me take a few more minutes. All right, everybody, if you come to a stopping place. So you have all this information that you thought about your character, and also just to throw in the word persona also refers to the public presentation that we that I guess individuals and just everyday people and celebrities cultivate when they're on Access Hollywood or when they have to do an interview. So my writing exercise for you, let me share my screen one more time. And so I'd like for you, for the next 15 minutes, I'd like you to write about a quiet moment that the character, this person that you've chosen, experiences. And it says no one else around. You can have people around. You can, I think that you just want to think about Rita Duff's Claudette Colvin Goes to Work. Other people can exist in the environment, but your speaker should be the main person narrating and describing the environment. Focus on your speaker rather than filling the poem with dialogue from others. So instead of a long dialogue or banter with another person, you're really trying to focus on those thoughts and descriptions and that your character is putting forth. So you can imagine Tyra Banks in a Target. You can imagine Meryl Streep smoking a joint, Evel Knievel learning to cook. So these are some ideas of quiet moments that are getting a peek behind the persona, behind the outward person that they show to the world. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes with this. So around 8:06 or so, we will we'll stop and I'll let people share and we'll continue the conversation. I'll leave this up for just a moment. couple of more minutes. Hi, Sheila, thank you for what you posted in the chat. Yeah, I didn't get to talk about Howard Ramsey's essay, but he wrote a great essay about Black authors and persona in particular that I read, and it was very influential. He ties a lot of Black presentation of persona or work with persona to catching the spirit in the Black church. So that's a very interesting article. And then also Martha Southgate's novel Third Girl from the Left, which is about a woman who has peripheral character in blaxploitation movies. I will definitely check that out. Thank you, Sheila. Lex, you had talked to me in the chat about a comment you wanted to share. I think this would be a great time. We can start some discussion and sharing, and we can mix them together.
Lex, do you hear us?
Is Lex still there?
Maybe Lex took a break.
Yeah. Would anyone like to share, and then we'll circle back to Lex. Could share what you wrote. That would be great. Could talk about what you wrote.
I'll share mine. It's probably not good at all, but so I am obsessed with Lady Gaga for some reason because I love her voice, and I love the fact that she is just so self-representative in like her dress and her actions, no matter what anybody ever said. And she was bullied a lot as a young child, so I wrote from kind of how she felt whenever she came home from school as like a young girl. So I'll start. For dinner, I eat notes and notes. Sound chokes my throat and fills my mouth. Swishing ballots right to left cheek. Music food splatters on mom and dad's photo in the room. They don't mind my mind. Pitch in the bottom of my esophagus meets epiglottis and it tickles. I chuck up my next verse in between my thoughts of fuck you, I'm an artist, next to mom and dad. My classmates and I listen to school picture day lullabies inside the frame, sets fire as I lift my fingertips from the keys. That's all.
Is it Emily? Hi, Emily. What jumps out to me is the fact that Lady Gaga is a singer, and I know that she writes her lyrics, and you went straight to music and straight to musicality. So I think that you found a way into that voice, and we as readers register that it's Lady Gaga because of that musicality.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Julie, I know you said you wanted to share.
Sure, I think I probably did this all wrong. So do you want me to read it first and then tell you who it is?
Sure.
I want to know. It's, I'll just say it's Einstein. I don't know why Einstein came to mind. So there you go. What a day to take out the boat, if I could. A blue sky New Jersey afternoon and walking back from the schoolroom chalkboard, chalk dust still on my fingers. I scrape it off on my brown cardigan. Why does she hate this cardigan so? It allows me to think, not about my sockless feet. Wonderful to always feel my toes curl and uncurl with each step. The nails touch the skin of the shoes. The skin of the arch brushes the cool breeze. A school bus drives up. It has stopped in front of the house. I plan to ditch in and grab my violin and go, but I must play host as Princeton lets me keep this lovely house, the clapboard white that blinks in the sun as clouds shift. I always see those beams bending. Against my will, the world needs numbers to define it. Ah, more chalk in the nails. Perhaps I'll wave, not shake hands, or get Elsa to do the honors. My head is too crowded and needs Schubert. Ah, they're so young, so expectant. These children, little universes, each one, gaping at my sidewalk. I'll stick out my tongue. Ha, they like that. I will try to touch my nose with my tongue and let Elsa shuffle their looks from me, to feel the strings under my fingers, to still my thoughts with a solitary note drawn out as far as I can hold the bow. The green chalkboard haunts me. How can I bring focus to unite mathematically? Ah, my shoelace, it's flipping back and forth against my ankle. If I kneel to tie it, I might not get up so easily. Swing my right leg in a slight arc to keep the lace off my path. Swing and step, flap and plank, keep hands in pockets. Did I bathe today? No matter.
So Julie, how did you come to Einstein?
Because I'm having a really bad hair day and he had many of them.
Great. Let's see. I think that
bad hair into not bad hair.
Yeah, I shaved mine off too, so I would not have a bad hair day.
Oh. What's funny though, if you it's a silly, you know, Einstein's hair was huge, and his sister Elsa's hair, not Elsa, but Elsa was his wife, but his sister, I can't remember her name, her hair late in life also was huge. They looked identical.
I learned something.
Liesel? Was that Liesel, the sister, or was his daughter?
I'm not, might have been Liesel, I'm not sure, because Elsa was the second wife, right? Anyway, what does one do with all that?
Play with it.
Dr. Matt Ucia, would you like to share?
Sure. I'm a nice guy, really. Cedric and Ryan can vouch for that. But I was thinking about, when you're talking about personas, there was this ball player named Nigel Morgan, and he then created this persona called Tony Plush, that if he ever did anything good, he would do the post-game interview as Tony Plush, as this like super arrogant, super over the top, You know, when they ask, you know, that pitch you hit for the home run, what can you tell about it? And most ball players, oh, it was a fastball out over the plate. He would say, it was the call of greatness. I saw it coming out of his hand. I caught it, you know. And I always wondered, like, what would the academic version of that be? And so I wrote this, and I'm just going to call it Dr. Plush's opus. Picking my white suits up from the dry cleaners, the smell of undergraduates still stinging my nostrils. I keep telling the dean I'm allergic to the hopeful ignorance that trails off of them like pollen. I wait in line with the bipeds who know nothing of deconstruction, the post-human turn, the great vowel shift, a moment interrupted, a flashback to the time long ago, a rainy day at grandma's. We baked cookies as she told stories of the old country, her soft paper-like hands guiding mine on the rolling pin, interrupted by a new memory, that time MLA was in Vancouver when they had the nerve to put me at 8 a.m. And that hot shit ABD queer theory rising star from Berkeley came looking for me, armed with Deleuzian theory, came looking for me in the Q&A. And all I had to say was, well, I guess there really is such a thing as a stupid question. I don't know if that's my id or not coming out. Maybe that's not the persona, that's just my id. I don't know. It's been a long week and a long semester.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, appreciate that. Did you feel angry or cocky, or like while you were writing that?
Insufferably cocky.
Okay.
Insufferably cocky. This is the worst people from my grad program. All balled into one monster, you know.
Oh yes, hi Mark.
Hey, Cedric. I wound up with Samuel Beckett at the drive-in. Forget about what's on screen, what is playing. It's all for naught. It's all for noir. All chiaroscuro, even for the projectionist. All focus on the cast of silhouettes against silver. Heads and hoods and antenna, bodies in motion or leaning against chrome, hood ornaments like gargoyles, knees on fenders, and the voices coming from boxes like heads on spikes, all in a row till the credits roll. Forget about the credits though, the reel's rewinding. There's always a double feature.
I think I'm having the same experience that Beckett does every time I go to the drive-thru. I think that sounded very familiar. Mark, I love, as you seem to really see through Samuel Beckett's eyes in the descriptions. So it's very, very interesting.
That's good. It came out the way. I don't feel I ever really entered him, but you know, maybe got as far as wearing the clothes.
Mm. Hi, is it Victoria?
Yes, I'd love to share if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So I decided to channel Carrie Fisher and hopefully got a little bit of her personality, at least. In a dressing room far, far away, I shiver beneath vanity lights, electric with steam from my fourth cup of coffee, styrofoam vessel wide-mouthed in the 1,000-watt glow. I shiver beneath bathrobe fuzz, my bare shoulders cocooned in fabricated softness, the bulky cloth padding the muscle of my frame. I shiver beneath this laugh of a costume, This gold-studded wonder bra of a joke no one let me in on before tightening the straps, cuffing me in the cups of a Jedi's dream, snakes tendriling against my rib cage. I'm still shivering as a knock on the door flushes my face into attention. 5 minutes.
Was there a particular part of this exercise that you enjoyed the most, Victoria?
I enjoyed being pushed out of my comfort zone with the idea of doing a persona, especially about someone who has existed. And especially, for some reason, Carrie Fisher popped in my head. So it was someone I knew, but also someone with such a strong voice that it was a push to willingly even approach her voice. So, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed that push.
Awesome. I noticed that it was very bodily poem. A lot of imagery that was very visceral, involving touch. Sheila, you were signaling me. Would you like to share, or are you told me to wrap it up?
No. I do want to share something, but it's not the exercise exactly, but I thought it might be useful for the conversation, because my newest book of poetry is a book of persona poems. But they're what you described earlier in the talk, Cedric, where it's really a version of yourself. So the poems are about someone very much like me, maybe me, having the same experiences as I had, but she became a character with various kinds of abilities that I did not have. And it was really fun and freeing to be able to write into my own history, in this case, like my adolescence, which is pretty awful, right? Adolescence, and give my character, the ability to make different decisions than I did. So I think it's a really, persona can be a way of freeing yourself too, if you're writing it from the perspective of, a different version of yourself. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Mark was asking if we could share names of people that we, in the pre-writing, who we came up with. If you're comfortable sharing, you could unmute and share, or you could put it in the chat. Even if you don't want to share what you wrote.
Well, I can share. Mark, some of us will know who this character is. I don't know why, but Archie Bunker is the character that came to me. I used to watch that show a lot when I was in college, so way after it was actually on primetime. And I came to love it very much. And I think that character reminds me of people in my family. So I don't know that I'll go anywhere with it, but that's who it is.
There's also the proto-Trump.
Mm-hmm. Julie said it was always Einstein. To me, one of the most famous of people. And then Olivia Pope, rewatching, great, awesome. Sylvia Plath, also a strong persona writer. Sylvia Plath. Billy Corgan. That's interesting. I agree. That's a great. It would always be. It was always Einstein. That's a great title. I agree. Julie, you should do something with that. Well, if I'm gonna give, I'll give you guys just a minute if anyone wants to say anything else, or ask any more questions, or stoke any more last minute discussion. But other than that, I I learned a long time ago from a friend, brother, be brief. So I am happy to wrap up early and let you enjoy the rest of your Friday night.
Thanks, Cedric.
Thank you all.
Cedric, thank you so much.
Thank
This
you,
was such a
Cedric.
pleasure to hear your wisdom unfold. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I wanted to just remind you or tell you for the first time that we are going to have another one of these next month, December 11th. Caitlin Hunter, who is our other emerging writer in residence, will be sharing her talk, which is called Life After the MFA. So this might be something for you MFA students to pass up. We'll get more, make sure I send it out again so everybody will hear it, but lots of practical stuff. Caitlin is right now a PhD student at Duquesne, so she'll have lots of tips and tricks, I hope. So anyway, thanks again for coming, everybody. Oh, it's graduation. We'll fix that. We'll fix it. We'll find a different date. Thank you. All right. Have a good night.
This is beautiful.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again.
So good to see everyone.
Bye, Julie. Hi, Mark. Hi, Ryan. Bye, Ryan. Okay. Cedric, that was great. Oh, you're
The debrief, is this the debriefing?
yeah. I'm sorry.